Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, what is a soldier's least favorite month? March! Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 block war games of all time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to talk about my top 10 block war games of all time, but I do want to clarify something before we get into the list. Now, there are many games that have blocks. They are war games, but they're not block war games. For instance, I'm thinking of, say, Commands and Colors, Napoleonics, Ancients, etc., etc. These are games that have blocks. They are a war game, but the blocks just represent the units. That's it. When I'm referring to a block war game here, what I'm referring to specifically are block war games that, of course, have the pips or numbers on the different sides. You rotate them to indicate their strength when they're hit. And that's kind of what I'm discussing here for this list of block war games. So let's jump into it. First of all, one honorable mention. I do want to mention Victory World War II. This was a game from Columbia Games with kind of like these maps that you can kind of mix and match to create kind of your own geography. But it's a pretty good standard block war game, a good jumping point into that game if you're interested. But I did want to mention that one. It nearly made the list. But my number 10 is Combat Infantry. Combat Infantry from Columbia Games is, again, another World War II game. But this one's fun. You had the kind of command system that was going on here. You have, meaning you kind of have to keep your fellows kind of close to your command. But you've got kind of an invasion scenario. You're moving inland. But it did a good job, I think, of abstracting the elements of World War II level combat into kind of I guess is it company level, I guess you'd say. I don't know, but it's a kind of a smaller unit level than some of these bigger, heavier games, larger scope games, I should say. But it does a good job here. It's fun. I actually haven't played this one in a while. In fact, I think I gave this one away, which I'm not too happy about. But it's a fun one. I really enjoyed Combat Infantry. That is my number 10. That is from Columbia Games. My number 9 is another World War II game from Columbia Games, and this is Rommel in the Desert. Now, Rommel in the Desert is a great game of course, the war in North Africa. And one side takes on the role of the Italians and the Germans. The other side is the British. And of course, you're trying to invade through Libya into Egypt. And the British are doing their best to kind of hold you back. And of course, you have the main roads you can go on. You have the trails that you can go on that kind of inhibit some of your movement. But you've got these like supply cards, and you're playing these cards to kind of activate your units and make sure they're in supply. Again, kind of in a lot of ways, kind of a standard war game here, but it was just fun. It was engaging. I loved the theme, the war in North Africa, and it did it very, very well. So this is Rommel in the Desert. That is number 9. That too is from Columbia Games. My number 8 is from Columbia Games. This is Hammer of the Scots. Hammer of the Scots is, of course, this game, medieval Scotland. You essentially are trying to kind of unite all of the houses and whatnot, or at least many behind your banner, and trying to attack. And what's interesting here is you can capture your enemies, and you can kind of convert them to your side. And so then they join you. So it's this game where you're trying to capture certain strongholds, but you're never quite sure, okay, I can count on this guy, but then if something happens, he's coming at you instead of following you. And so that was a really interesting dynamic, the way your pieces kind of moved and shifted here quite a bit. Really enjoyed it. That's another very fun block war game. Hammer of the Scots, number 8 from Columbia Games. My number 7 is from Worthington Games. This is the French and Indian War, 1757 to 1759. Now, this is a game, it's got kind of a long game board, and essentially you are fighting as the British or the French, and you have certain kind of avenues of advance that you would try to go here. And this game was a lot of fun. You had the sea zones, and you're trying to control the sea, because that's going to give you access to moving here. But this is a game that, you can make a real push on one side of the board, but you're kind of sacrificing your security on the other side of the board. And it's one of those games that forces you to make tough choices. But you've got, if you want to win, you have to make those calculations. And it works very well. Again, it's one of these games, one of these block war games that really captures the history quite well, but at the same time makes a fun and playable game abstracted into the block war game genre. So this is the French and Indian War, 1757, 1759, and that is from Worthington Games. My number 6 is a game that I played just a few months ago for the first time, and this is another Columbia Games, but this is Crusader Rex. Now, Crusader Rex takes place during the Crusades. Of course, you've got the Christians fighting the Saracens, the Muslims, and you've got the Holy Land, and you've got, of course, the castles, and you can fight in the castles. You can lay siege to the castles. The garrisons can come out and fight. But you're playing, of course, over several turns, and you're playing cards to kind of bolster your strength. But you've also got like an assassin that either side can use that can go around and take out blocks and hurt blocks. But the way the Christians reinforce, like things have to be drawn and go like into like this waiting pool, and they have to wait until they're there, and then they can eventually come into the game. And that was pretty cool. But this is I had so much fun with this game. I remember we were playing with my friend Chris, and like he was coming out of Egypt at me, and I was able to hold on to where I was, but I sent like a small force that had like virtually no strength toward Egypt. Well, he's got to hold Egypt. That's one of his kind of victory cities. So he has to like take this huge army that's just about to crush my defense, I think in Jerusalem. He has to pull that back in order to protect Egypt. And he has no idea what I'm coming at him with. So I totally bluffed him with just these very weak units, but he can't take that chance. So he pulls back. But it's full of great moments like that, and the bluffing and the fog of war. In pretty much all of these games, the fog of war is a great element and a fun and interesting element. So that is Crusader Rex. That is number 6, and that is from Columbia Games. My number 5 is another World War II game from, you guessed it, Columbia Games. This is Pacific Victory. Pacific Victory is a great game of World War II in Asia and the Pacific. And it's one of these games, too, that just is you've got the naval battles going on, but then you also have kind of the land battles in Southeast Asia and China. And it's a game that it really kind of taxes you with resources and how you're going to effectively use what you've got on the board to achieve victory here. It was tough too, because like you go after some of like strongholds and stuff, and it was just really hard to take them. But it's incredibly rewarding when you can outmaneuver your enemies. And on the whole, it was just fantastic. I love kind of games of the Pacific War and World War II that include both kind of land battles, but also the kind of carrier battles. I really like that quite a bit. So that is my number 5. That is Pacific Victory, and that is from Columbia Games. Now, I kind of debated with Pacific Victory. I kind of debated that or Victory in Europe. And I think I kind of like Pacific Victory a hair better, although I really like Victory in Europe. In fact, you could almost say they're tied. I really like Victory in Europe as well. But I decided, instead of including that title here for my number 4, instead of Victory in Europe, I decided I was going to go with the GMT Games version, which is Triumph and Tragedy. Triumph and Tragedy is this great World War II in Europe game where you have kind of, it plays 3 players. Essentially, you have the fascist player, the communist player, and the democratic capitalist player. And so you're kind of not really along national lines so much as you're along kind of ideological lines. And what's cool is you've got the different tracks, which are measuring your population, your resources, your industry, and the most kind of resources you have to spend is the lowest of any of those tracks. So that was very interesting. But it's good. I remember the first game I played, I was Germany, and before I could make any real aggressive moves, the West and Russia went to war with each other, and then I was able to kind of pick up a lot of the spoils from that. So that was a lot of fun. Now, I recently played Chaos and Conquest and Consequence, which is the Pacific version of that, and I really enjoyed that one as well. But here, I actually think I prefer Triumph and Tragedy, even though again, that was one I gave away. I still got Conquest and Consequence, but I don't have Triumph and Tragedy, and that's one I probably should pick up again at some point. But that is such a good game, Triumph and Tragedy. It's such a interesting puzzle with the different players. And what I love about it too is not just that it's a war game. You've got this whole first part of the game, which is a diplomatic game, and you're playing cards to try to get diplomatic control over certain territories on the board. And then once the war begins, you can also try to play cards to gain technologies and different technologies. In Conquest and Consequences, you can even try to develop an atomic bomb. So anyway, for those reasons, I really, really like that. So that is Triumph and Tragedy. That is my number 4. That is from GMT Games. My number 3 is one of, if not the first block war game I ever played. I still have it. It's been a while since I played it, and they just announced they're doing a new version of it. And this is Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is a great game where one of you is Caesar, one of you is Pompey, and of course you're vying for control of the Roman Republic during the Civil War there. Cleopatra is a character, and whoever controls Cleopatra gets more resources from Egypt. But again, this is a game where you're playing cards that allow you to move or to refit your units or gain more units. And you're playing in this kind of in the Mediterranean. It's just beautiful, the game. It's a great map, although I've got the paper map. It looks good, and I remember the first time I played this, and it was just like, oh, this is so cool. And introducing you to that system of combat, where you've got the ratings. Some of them I think were A or B or C, and they go first. All your A's go first, then their A's go first, then your B's go first, and their B's go first. And I really like that. That's the first time I think I was really introduced to that kind of a combat system. And so that's got a special place in my heart, but it's an incredibly fun game in its own right. So that is number 3. That is Julius Caesar, and that is from Columbia Games. My number 2 is a game that first played this, I think it came out in 2017, and played it, and it blew me away. This was Fields of Despair from GMT Games. This is a game that it's set during the World War I. It's a Western Front. It kind of abstracts the Eastern Front and the war at sea. What I really liked, one of the things I really liked about this game is it had a really cool, the numbers you're dealing with were really cool. So instead of just kind of 1 to 4 and that was it, the blocks you have went all the way up to like 20, right? You'd have different numbered blocks that would go all the way up to 20. So you had some massive numbers of armies here. And if it got too big and too unwieldy, you had kind of instead of rolling all those die, you would have a chart, that you could roll on. But it was so cool. You'd find out the factors that you got, and you'd look at the factor chart, and it would tell you, of course, what kinds of victories you would have. It was really a lot of fun. And again, if guys got out of supply, they would do it. But it was kind of a different kind of block war game. And then, like I said, the massive numbers that were involved, and then a lot of these other abstractions that were going on. But incredibly immersive. One of my favorite World War I games of all time. Really had a lot of fun with it. That is Fields of Despair. That is from GMT Games, and that is my number 2. My number 1 block war game of all time. Gotta say it. Napoleon 4th Edition, the Waterloo Campaign. This game is just beautiful. I love the map here. I love the map because it's not like spaces or whatever. It's just roads. And some of these other ones have that, but it looks like you're looking at a map. You're playing this game and you look like you're looking at a map, and you can move your units along the roads to the various cities and spaces on the board, and it's just I love that aspect. But I love this game too because you move your units into certain spaces to do battle. But if you both have enough units there, you actually go to a battle board, and you have, again, you got both flanks and your center, and kind of, I think it's your reserve, and so you're trying to break a line with the system there, with the rotating the block system. And it was so much fun. I remember the first time I played with my buddy Aaron, and we both were like, holy crap, this is fun. Played it a few times since, and it's just every time I play it, it's so cool. Now, there's a way you can play the game. If you have 2 sets of the game, you can actually play it. What is it? Kind of with a. You have to have like a referee. You have to have a third game master here, I guess, going. And that game master, essentially, it's a double blind. You don't put any of your units on the board. And the game master has to keep track of where your units are, and he determines, okay, you see these guys, they see you. And it sounded like such a fun way to play, but I just don't know if I could ever find anyone to play that role. I'd do it, but I don't know if I could find anyone else to play that role. Really fun. Great. I mean, I love the theme. I love Waterloo as a battle. I love playing that in games. Ridley Scott butchered it in the film, but it's such a fun battle to, I've read a lot about it. I wrote a big paper in grad school on Waterloo. I love that battle. Love learning about that battle. I mean, it's a horrible battle. People died. I don't mean to say I love battle, but I love learning about it. And it's a fun battle to play. And this one does the whole campaign very, very, very well. So that is Napoleon, 4th edition, the Waterloo campaign. That is from Columbia Games, and that is my number 1. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? Do you like the games on my list? Do you not like the games on my list? What Block Wargames would you put on this list? I'm always eager to find out what people think of my list, and of course, I always get great suggestions for games from people when they comment here on the videos. So please let me know what you think. Please comment here on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on Facebook, etc., etc. We love to hear from you. Please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, etc., etc. And of course, I ask you to check out my other channel, Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history, fun things like that. I always appreciate that as well. And I'll probably post this video on Board Game Geek. I would appreciate it if you would give it a thumb. It's always fun to see us there on the front page under hot videos. Also, too, if you are a fan of the channel, you like the content we bring you, I'd humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button here on the YouTube page and leave a contribution. I was recently thinking about the Air Force and what a truly great track record the Air Force has. I mean, they haven't left one up there yet.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
Oh, hello. I did not see you there. My name is Cody, and this is the Discriminating Gamer. Today we're going to take a look at Napoleon, the Waterloo Campagne, 4th edition from Columbia Games. A game that is so French, you will call it toast. French toast, really? French toast? That's what you gave me, French toast? I'm just gonna keep smoking my fake invisible cigarette.